Beneath the churning waves lies a fortune guarded by an ancient curse. For centuries, this legendary treasure has lured explorers to the ocean floor, only to meet with strange and terrible fates. You will discover the complete story of the sunken treasure and the terrifying power of the curse that protects it. We will uncover the truth behind the ship's final voyage and the dark ritual that sealed its fate. What force truly waits in the deep, and why has no one ever claimed this wealth for themselves? What would you risk for a fortune that might cost you everything? The vessel was the Santiago, a Spanish galleon of immense size and opulence, sailing under the royal banner of King Philip IV. It carved its path across the Atlantic during the golden age of Spanish treasure fleets, a floating bank carrying the wealth of an empire back to Europe. Its holds were not filled with simple trade goods, but with a king's ransom. Imagine chests overflowing with gold doubloons, each one stamped with the cross of Jerusalem and the Spanish crown. Silver ingots, so heavy it took 2 men to lift a single bar, were stacked like common firewood. Among this metallic fortune were jewels of impossible beauty, emeralds the size of a child's fist from New Granada, and pearls harvested from the Caribbean's deepest beds. This was more than money. It was the lifeblood of a nation's economy, a tangible representation of its global power. The Santiago's final voyage began not in chaos, but in triumph, loaded with this incredible cargo under the command of Captain Alonso de Herrera, a seasoned and respected mariner. The wealthy merchants of Seville, whose entire fortunes were tied up in that wooden hull, celebrated its departure, confident in its safe return. But the sea is a fickle ally. In the late summer of 1641, a hurricane of legendary fury descended upon the fleet. The Santiago, struggling under the weight of its own treasure, was separated from its escort ships. For 2 days, Captain de Herrera fought the towering waves and shrieking winds, a desperate battle against an unstoppable force. The ship, its sails shredded and its hull breached by the mountainous seas, was swallowed by the ocean, taking every soul and every glittering coin into the dark, crushing depths. This monumental loss, this sudden erasure of such immense wealth and human life, created a void, and into that void, the first whispers of a curse were born. The sea had claimed its prize, but the story of the Santiago was far from over. Its wealth did not rest in peaceful solitude on the ocean floor. Instead, a dark legend began to take root, a whispered explanation for the strange fates of those who first sought to reclaim the lost gold. The origin of the curse is shrouded in as much mystery as the wreck itself. Some tales speak of a powerful Taino shaman whose sacred lands were desecrated by the Spanish conquest. Enraged by the plunder of his people's spiritual artifacts, which were packed away in the Santiago's hold as exotic curiosities, he is said to have called upon the old gods of the sea and the storm, binding the treasure to an eternal sentence. His ritual allegedly involved a ceremonial dagger, a lock of hair from a Spanish noble, and a final, desperate incantation that any hand that touched the stolen wealth would know only suffering. Other versions point to a very different source, a vengeful priest who sailed with the fleet. This man of God, horrified by the brutal treatment of indigenous peoples and the sheer greed that fueled the expedition, supposedly performed a last rite not of blessing, but of condemnation as the ship foundered. With the waves crashing over the deck, he denounced the treasure as a creation of sin and pronounced that it would forever be protected by divine wrath, a holy punishment for the avarice it represented. Then there is the most haunting theory of all, that the curse was born from the final, defiant act of Captain Alonso de Herrera himself, as his command sank beneath him, accepting the inevitability of his fate. He may have sworn an oath that his grave and his king's fortune would remain forever undisturbed. The specific wording of the curse varies with each telling, but its core message remains terrifyingly consistent. Disturb the wreck, and you will be met with relentless misfortune. Touch the treasure, and you will be pursued by a creeping madness, a deep-sea dementia that clouds the mind. Take a single coin, and a fatal illness or a sudden, violent death will inevitably find you. This was not merely a ghost story. The curse first entered local folklore through the accounts of fishermen and early salvagers who worked the waters where the Santiago was lost. They told of strange lights dancing beneath the surface on moonless nights, of nets torn to shreds by unseen forces, and of men who returned from expeditions speaking in tongues or falling into unexplained fevers. One well-documented anecdote from the late 1700s tells of a British salvage captain, a pragmatic and unbelieving man named Edward Whittaker, who publicly boasted he would laugh in the face of any Spanish curse. After retrieving a single barnacle-encrusted silver bar from a debris field, his ship was beset by a sudden squall unlike any in the weather records. It shattered his masts and drove his vessel onto a reef, drowning half his crew. Whittaker himself survived, only to lose his entire fortune to a warehouse fire in port months later. He died a broken man, insisting to the end that he was being hunted by a cold shadow from the deep. These stories, repeated in taverns and recorded in sailors' logs, wove a powerful, malevolent force directly into the fabric of the treasure's history, making the curse as real a danger as the ocean itself. That curse did not remain a collection of old fishermen's tales for long. It began its grim work in earnest when the first serious expeditions set out to find the Santiago. The earliest documented attempt was launched in 1822 by a French aristocrat, the Comte de Valois. Brimming with the confidence of his class and the era's scientific progress, he financed a state-of-the-art salvage ship equipped with the newest diving bells and drag lines. They located what they believed to be the wreck site within a month, a remarkable feat, but their success was short-lived. On the day they planned to send the first diver down, a perfectly calibrated winch, tested just hours before, snapped without warning. The heavy metal bell plunged into the depths, nearly taking the ship down with it. That night, a strange, debilitating sickness swept through the crew. Men who were healthy at sunset were found shivering with fever by morning, their skin covered in a peculiar, oily rash. The Comte, desperate and terrified, called off the expedition and returned to France, where he reportedly lost his entire family fortune in a series of bizarre financial misfortunes, living out his days in relative poverty. Nearly a century later, in 1928, an American syndicate led by the industrialist Howard Sterling took up the challenge. Sterling was a man of steel and steam, a modern titan who publicly dismissed the curse as primitive superstition. He poured a fortune into the venture, outfitting a vessel with early sonar and the most advanced hard-hat diving suits money could buy. His team included the best engineers and divers of the age. They found the wreck with stunning clarity on their new scanning equipment, a triumphant moment that seemed to mark a new era of discovery. Then, the inexplicable began. Their sonar units would fail at critical moments, showing only static. A diving suit's air hose, meticulously inspected, would inexplicably kink and cut off the air supply, forcing a frantic retrieval. The final blow was a freak accident that defied all probability. A support cable on the recovery platform suddenly gave way, swinging a heavy metal boom across the deck. It struck and killed Sterling's chief engineer, a man who had been the project's most vocal skeptic. The syndicate disbanded in shock and fear, their technology useless against an enemy they could not understand or fight. The most chilling modern attempt came in 1974, funded by a reclusive British billionaire named Arthur Pendleton. He approached the treasure not just as wealth, but as a historical puzzle to be solved, using cutting-edge remote-operated vehicles and magnetometers. For a week, everything went perfectly. The ROV descended, sending back crystal-clear images of the seafloor. Then, the feed showed it, the ghostly, skeletal outline of a Spanish galleon resting in the silt. As the crew cheered, the ROV's manipulator arm extended to brush sand from a visible chest. The video feed instantly dissolved into a storm of digital noise. All contact with the machine was lost. A backup vehicle sent down hours later suffered an identical, catastrophic failure the moment it approached the wreck. The expedition's final tragedy was quieter, but far more personal. Pendleton's young daughter, waiting for him back in England, was suddenly diagnosed with a rare and aggressive form of leukemia. He abandoned the search immediately, later telling a confidant that he felt a cold, certain dread that his ambition had triggered the curse's wrath. His daughter recovered after years of treatment, a fact that only deepened his belief in the supernatural forces at play. Each of these expeditions, separated by decades and armed with ever-improving technology, met the same invisible wall. The curse did not discriminate between old ropes and new electronics, between diving bells and robotic probes. It adapted, it waited, and it always struck at the moment of triumph, leaving behind broken men and a legend that had been paid for in blood and sorrow. Yet, the legend of the Santiago refused to fade with the failures of the past. A new generation of hunters arrived, armed not with diving bells, but with supercomputers and multi-beam sonar that could paint a three-dimensional picture of the seafloor. In the early 2000s, a well-funded consortium named Oceanic Ventures launched the most technologically sophisticated search to date. They deployed autonomous underwater vehicles that glided silently through the depths, their sensors mapping every contour and anomaly. For months, they processed terabytes of data until one day, their lead marine archaeologist, a pragmatic scientist named Dr. Iver Rostova, announced a breakthrough. They had located a debris field that perfectly matched the size and layout of a 17th century galleon, and nestled within the sonar shadows were the distinct, boxy shapes of what could only be treasure chests. The discovery sent waves of excitement through the entire team, but as they prepared to send a deep-diving, remotely operated vehicle for a visual confirmation, the old stories began to resurface. A senior technician, a man who had laughed at the curse over coffee just days before, was suddenly stricken with a severe, undiagnosable vertigo that left him unable to work. A critical data server, protected by multiple redundancies, suffered a simultaneous and inexplicable failure, corrupting a week's worth of high-resolution scans. The crew, a group of rational engineers and scientists, found themselves glancing over their shoulders, speaking in hushed tones about the cold dread that seemed to permeate the ship. Dr. Rostova, a staunch materialist, fought against the growing superstition, insisting there were logical explanations for every setback. She pointed to the known presence of powerful, unpredictable currents that could strain equipment and disorient even seasoned mariners. The technician's illness, she argued, was likely a rare but documented case of seasickness magnified by the power of suggestion, a psychological phenomenon where the expectation of misfortune can manifest physical symptoms. The server failure could be attributed to a simple, if catastrophic, firmware glitch exacerbated by the corrosive salt air. She presented a compelling case, framing the curse as a narrative humans constructed to explain a string of bad luck in an inherently hostile and unpredictable environment. The ocean itself was curse enough, she claimed, without needing to invent ghosts. This created a palpable tension aboard the research vessel, a silent battle between two equally powerful forces. On one side stood centuries of folklore, reinforced by a chilling pattern of tragedy. On the other stood cold, hard logic and the unwavering belief in measurable cause and effect. The team was caught in the middle, their scientific training clashing with a primal, gut-level fear. The question hung in the air, as tangible as the sea mist? Or were they simply facing the expected challenges of deep sea exploration? Or was the curse of the Santiago, patient and adaptive, now testing the resolve of a new era? The ocean floor holds its secrets tight, and the Santiago's treasure remains one of its most jealously guarded. We are left with a mystery that defies easy answers, a puzzle where the pieces of historical tragedy and modern failure fit together with an unsettling precision. On one side of the scale lies a mountain of anecdotal evidence, a chilling chronicle of expeditions that ended in madness, mechanical failure, and personal ruin. From the Comte de Valois to Howard Sterling and Arthur Pendleton, the pattern is undeniable. Each attempt to claim the wealth was met with a devastating, often bizarre, counterstroke at the precise moment of success. This is the power of the curse narrative, a story so potent it has survived for centuries. Yet, on the other side of that scale rests the unyielding logic of science. The deep sea is the most hostile environment on Earth, a place where pressure can crush steel, currents can snap cables, and complex equipment can fail for 1,000 mundane reasons. Could it be that the curse is merely a story we tell to give shape to our own bad luck, a psychological phantom born from the immense pressure and inherent danger of the quest itself? Perhaps the true power of the curse is not supernatural at all, but psychological. It preys on our deepest fears of the unknown and the consequences of our own greed. So we are left with the final, haunting question. Is the treasure of the Santiago protected by an ancient, malevolent force, a spell cast upon the deep, or is the curse nothing more than a reflection of our own minds, a self-fulfilling prophecy of doom that we carry with us into the abyss? What do you believe? Share your own thoughts on curses, lost treasures, and the line between legend and reality in the comments below. And if you are drawn to the world's greatest unsolved mysteries, subscribe for more deep dives into the shadows of history.